Have you ever had the feeling that everything around you keeps working, even when you can't anymore? As if the world has no time for breaks, no mercy for falls. Max Weber saw this before almost anyone. And what he saw was a machine. A machine that turns. A machine that doesn't depend on you. A machine that doesn't stop, with or without your presence. Imagine for a moment that modern society is like a huge machine. Complex, cold, noisy. Millions of people moving in routines, following invisible orders, feeding systems that no one knows who built anymore. You wake up, work, pay, consume, go home, and the next day, it all starts again. And if you break down along the way, the system just replaces you, like a defective part on a production line. Weber called this rationalization, a process that transforms society into something predictable, calculable, controllable, but at the cost of the soul. Because everything that does not serve to generate results is discarded. Emotion, faith, tradition, art, reflection, all of these are irrelevant in the face of the logic of efficiency. He warned us that we were creating an iron cage, a prison without bars, made of rules, goals, and signed papers. And the scariest thing, we agreed to enter it. Worse, we call it progress. Today you may be inside this cage and not even realize it. You may be living according to automatic tasks, racing against an invisible clock, being evaluated by metrics you didn't even choose. And when you finally stop to think, you feel like time has passed and you've gone with it. But you don't know where. The modern machine has no heart. It has schedules. It has no ears. It has algorithms. It doesn't know your name. It knows your social security number, your productivity, and your access password. And it keeps going. It keeps going. Fueled by spreadsheets, reports, quarterly goals, and delivery apps. When you take a vacation, it doesn't pause. When you get sick, it replaces you. When you die, it doesn't even notice. Someone else takes your place, and everything goes on as before. Weber saw this coming, even at the beginning of the 20th century. And he knew. What was supposed to be a more organized society could turn into a dehumanized world, where each person is just a function, a cog, a workforce, and nothing more. But you still have a choice. You can still stop, if only for a second, and ask yourself, am I living or just functioning? Before machines existed, there were people. People, tribes, families, living under the command of traditions, gods, and values passed down from generation to generation. Life was uncertain, but full of meaning. Every gesture had a spiritual reason. Every task had a sacred value. The peasant prayed before planting. The warrior fought in the name of his honor. The elder taught through experience and silence. But then, something changed. Modernity arrived, and with it, the cult of reason. Max Weber watched this rupture with frightened eyes. The world would no longer be governed by myths or beliefs. The new order was called efficiency. And the deity that everyone came to serve was called calculus. Thus was born the spirit of modern capitalism. Wealth was no longer seen as a blessing, but as a duty. Profit became a symbol of morality. Work became a sign of virtue. And financial success became proof that you were doing your job well. Life became a ladder, and each rung had a price. It was in this soil that the gears sprouted. Weber explained that the world began to function as a bureaucracy, a system where everything requires rules, forms, stamps, processes, where no one really gives orders, but everyone obeys. Power is diluted, impersonal. The face doesn't matter, the position matters. The person doesn't matter, the protocol matters. Have you ever felt powerless in the face of a system? Waiting for hours for service, hearing, "That's none of my business, the system is down, come back another day"? Well, that's not a mistake. That's the system working exactly as it was designed. The purpose of bureaucracy is not to listen to you. It is to maintain order. Even if it costs empathy, even if it costs time, even if it costs human beings. And Weber knew, modern society was creating a machine that was too perfect, too cold, too logical. Technical rationality was beginning to replace the reason for living. Decisions were no longer made by reflection, but by statistics, reports, orders from above. Little by little, everything became a process. Love became a marital status. Being born became a registry. Donating became a debt. Helping became a project. Existence was shelved, and the human being became a collaborator. That was the beginning of the gear. A self-sustaining, self-regulating machine that no longer needs a king, a pope, or a philosopher. It just needs you to be on time, follow protocols, and not ask too many questions. And as you do all this, it grows. What started as an organization became imprisonment. What was meant to facilitate became control. And what was meant to serve became the master. You wake up to the alarm. You wash your face, have a quick coffee, check messages, answer emails, leave the house, traffic. Hurry. Meeting, production, results, break, more tasks, return home, screen, light sleep, and again, every day, same script, same demands, same tiredness. Weber saw this mechanism forming before most people did. The rationalization of life did not stop at large institutions. It descended to the level of everyday life. It became intimate. It became invisible. It entered through the front door, dressed as organization. What used to be living is now operating. The body works, but the soul is silent. Time passes quickly, and even when there is some space to breathe, you feel guilty for not doing something useful, because the modern machine doesn't just demand productivity. It has convinced us that productivity is synonymous with value. If you don't produce, you're worthless. If you don't deliver, you're late. If you don't respond, you're out of the game. This routine isn't just busy, it's merciless. And the cruelest part is that it comes packaged in phrases like, success depends on effort, time is money, and those who sleep lose. Expressions that turn rest into a sin and silence into waste. Weber saw rationalization as a process that transformed everything into calculation, including time, including existence. The clock became a kind of new god, impartial, objective, unquestionable. And you are always running after it, trying to recover something that has already been timed to escape. Pauses have disappeared, conversations have become quick, meetings have become strategic, life has become networking, leisure has become a performative obligation, and rest, a privilege that few allow themselves, with guilt. This is how modern routine devours, not with teeth, but with agendas. Have you ever noticed how even moments of pleasure need to fit into a spreadsheet? Trips with a schedule, lunches with a goal, relationships with emotional KPIs, even happiness has a set time. Weber wasn't just talking about economics, politics, or religion. He was talking about how all of this was forming a new collective soul, a soul that was exhausted but functional, a soul that keeps going, even if it no longer knows why. And the most ironic thing is that the more you produce, the more the machine demands, the more you deliver, the more it charges. There is no finish line, only a line of continuity. The system is tireless because it has no heart. And if you stop to rest, it simply runs over you. Do you live in this routine because you chose to? Or because it was woven around you while you were just trying to get it all done? You wake up and think, today I can choose whatever I want. But throughout the day, everything is already decided. The route is the same. The commitments, the same. The leisure options have already been chosen by the algorithm. The music you listen to was recommended by an app. The restaurant has the same menu as last week. And when night comes, you just repeat the tiredness. The feeling of freedom has become a theater. Weber warned, the modern world would not take away freedom violently. It would suffocate it slowly, under the guise of autonomy. It is a conditional freedom, pre-formatted. You can choose. As long as it is within the options already approved. As long as it does not interfere with the functioning of the machine. The system does not force you, it seduces you. With slogans like, be yourself, build your future, do what you love. But who really decides this? The school, the parents, the culture, the market? The uncomfortable truth is that much of what we call personal choice has already been structured by invisible forces, inherited traditions, manufactured models of success, imposed aesthetic standards, lifestyles edited by influencers. Max Weber clearly saw the birth of the disenchantment of the world. In place of magic and mystery, logic and calculation took over. In place of faith and destiny, performance and merit took over. Human beings became managers of themselves. Life became a project, and the self, a startup. And the more options you have, the more trapped you feel. Because freedom has become an obligation. You can do anything has become, you have to do anything. Be successful, be productive, maintain your appearance, update your stories, meditate, eat well, read, invest, and still smile. Freedom without direction is just anxiety. You can leave your house, but you need to be traceable. You can say what you think, but you have to follow guidelines. You can express yourself, but you have to perform well. You can be different, but within the standard of the difference that sells. It's the freedom of the shop window, beautiful, shiny, and made of thick glass. And the worst part, when you don't fit in, when you fail, when you make mistakes or stop, it's your fault. Because they said you were free. So if you're tired, unproductive, or unhappy, it's because you're not trying hard enough. Weber did not romanticize the past. He knew that ancient traditions also oppressed, but he warned of a new form of oppression, the one that holds you back from within, that turns you into your own jailer. You believe you are in control, but the path is already set. You simply choose between two roads that lead to the same place, to the functioning of the machine. You weren't born with the fear of making mistakes, nor with Monday anxiety, nor with the shame of standing still. These feelings were taught, programmed, trained in you from an early age. Weber knew that the social machine cannot keep itself going. To keep turning, it needs to prepare individuals, and the preparation begins early, very early, in childhood. The modern school was the first great training ground, not to form thinkers, but to create operators. You learn to sit, obey, wait your turn, repeat what was said, get a good grade. The bell rings, you change classes, you raise your hand to go to the bathroom. All the time you are watched, measured, evaluated. And the name of this? Education. Weber saw the danger of a world where human formation becomes a manufacturing process. Each student, a product. Each behavior, a code. Each dream, a career converted into a productive function. You grow up with the idea that something is only worth it if it delivers results. That time has to be enjoyed. That idleness is failure. That pause is delay. That introspection is a deviation. That silence is a sign of weakness. And when you deviate from what is expected, the machine does not punish you with violence. It punishes you with invisibility. Those who do not fit in, disappear. Those who do not deliver, are forgotten. Those who question, are subtly excluded. You were trained to function, to go with the flow, to not question logic, to confuse value with utility. You know how to memorize a formula, but you don't understand your own mind. You know how to present a project, but you don't know how to recognize an emotional crisis. You know how to compete, but you don't know how to rest. And, worse still, you feel guilty when you try, because the system taught us that to stop is to lose, that to feel is to weaken, that taking care of yourself is a luxury, that there is only one goal, to keep going, 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 until we no longer know why. Max Weber was not just a sociologist. He was a prophet of modern functioning. He saw that by organizing everything, we would kill what cannot be measured, the soul. And the system knows this. It knows that if you stop working for too long, it might start to feel. And if it feels, it might start to think. And if it thinks, it might refuse to keep turning. That's why the machine keeps you busy, distracts you, rewards you, threatens you, conditions you to be productive even when you're exhausted. You were taught to produce, but no one taught you to exist. It has no face, it has no voice, it has no heart, but it decides your life. It authorizes or denies your access. It sets deadlines, imposes rules, establishes limits. It is called bureaucracy, and in the modern world, it is the new silent goddess. Max Weber was one of the first to understand the true power of bureaucracy. To many, it seemed just an efficient way of organizing processes. But to Weber, it was much more than that. It was a system of control, cold, rational, impersonal, that could cross borders and govern entire lives without arousing suspicion. In bureaucracy, no one is in charge alone. Everything depends on paperwork, authorizations, hierarchies. You don't talk to the person, you talk to the department. You are not addressed by name, you are addressed by number. It doesn't matter how urgent it is, the procedure is what matters. The tragedy is that over time, we stopped seeing this mechanism as a tool and began to worship it as an inevitable deity. Have you ever begged for a document, waited hours for a signature, been told it can't be done, even when it made sense? Then you felt the power of bureaucracy. It doesn't have to humiliate you. It just has to ignore you. She feeds on your patience. She grows in your waiting. And when you give up, she wins. Weber explained that bureaucracy is a type of legitimate domination. Not because you love it, but because you see no alternative. It seems fair because it treats everyone equally. But this equality is cold, inhuman, insensitive. Within this system, you are not a being with a history. You are a case, a protocol, an ongoing process. And there is something even deeper. Bureaucracy shapes us emotionally. It teaches us to keep quiet, to accept, to give up explaining, to conform to slowness, to obey even when there is absurdity. This kind of obedience seeps into other areas of life. At work, you follow orders even when they seem useless. In healthcare, you accept hasty diagnoses. In politics, you resign yourself to distance. The bureaucratic goddess reigns in silence, and everyone serves her without realizing it. The most tragic thing is that this machine doesn't need evil. It only needs compliance. And the cycle repeats itself. We create systems to make life easier. But systems create rules. Rules become walls. Walls become prisons. And prisons become routine. And when someone dares to question it, the answer is always the same. Those are the rules. But no one knows who created them anymore. You see, the modern world is not ruled by villains. It is ruled by spreadsheets. And the scariest thing is this: the more you adapt to bureaucracy, the stronger it becomes. There was a time when people followed leaders because they were inspired, because they saw in them something sacred, rare, powerful, a sparkle in their eyes, a word that moved crowds, a presence that ignited hope. Max Weber called this charisma. But in the modern world, that shine is fading. Charisma is dying. And in its place, something very different is born: technical authority, the dominance of cold competence, the command of the expert, the reign of the manager. Today, we don't follow those who inspire us. We follow those who have the position, those who have access, those who have a digital signature, those who have permission in the system. The charismatic leader, the one who stirs emotions, breaks structures, and provokes change, has become a threat because he doesn't follow the rules. He thinks outside the box. He acts on faith, on impulse, on vision, and the modern machine doesn't accept that because charisma is unpredictable, and the system hates what it can't calculate. Weber saw this transformation clearly. In bureaucracy, everything must be stable, controlled, and impersonal. Leadership is rotating. The role is more important than the person. If one leaves, another comes in. What matters is not the name, it is the badge. The consequences are devastating. Institutions are becoming gray, soulless, without shine. Schools without passionate teachers. Churches without living faith. Companies without human purpose. Governments without their own voice. What's left are managers, technicians, routine administrators, goal achievers, specialists who know everything about processes and almost nothing about people. Have you noticed how improvisation, emotion, and spontaneous gestures are avoided today? Everything needs to be aligned, authorized, reviewed, and recorded. There is no room for the brilliance of charisma, only for the cold light of efficiency. And the saddest part? Many of us accept this as a sign of progress. We confuse security with stagnation. We call professionalism what is often just masked insensitivity. The death of charisma creates a void, a silence, an existential boredom. Because charisma doesn't just command, it inspires, it touches the intangible. It reminds us that we are more than functions. But today, even leaders need to look normal, controlled, corporate, presentable. What is different is annoying. What is passionate is frightening. What is visionary is ridiculed. And so the machine wins once again, because charisma, that unpredictable fire that moved revolutions, illuminated cultures, changed histories, is now treated as a system failure. But Weber left a question hanging in the air. Can a society continue to function without charisma, without dying from within? What if one day you stopped? What if you didn't stick to your schedule? What if you turned off your alarm clock, ignored deadlines, declined invitations, abandoned forms? The idea seems liberating, until reality takes its toll. In Weber's world, stopping is heresy. The machine is made to turn, and everything that doesn't turn with it is rejected. What doesn't produce, delays. What questions, bothers, what pauses, disappears. The system doesn't bind you with chains. It binds you with consequences. And they are subtle. Your absence is noted not with concern, but with replacement. Another takes your place, and the cycle continues. Weber understood this phenomenon as a consequence of modern depersonalization. You are valuable as long as you are functional, as long as you are useful. When you stop, you become a problem. And the cost of stopping is not just economic, it is psychological. When you decide to slow down, you enter hostile territory, that of silence, doubt, self-analysis. And you discover something disturbing, that without tasks, goals, and obligations, you don't really know who you are. Because the machine doesn't just control your time, it shapes your identity. And to stop is to uninstall the system, but without a manual for what comes next. You start to ask yourself, if I'm not my work, my titles, my deliverables, then what am I? That's when many come running back, because emptiness scares more than routine. Doubt hurts more than rushing, and the system knows this. That's why it offers distractions. Offers instant entertainment, daily doses of stimuli so that you never look inside. But there are those who persist, those who accept silence as an ally, those who endure the discomfort of the pause. And these few begin to see what was hidden, that there is life outside the machine. But it is a life that demands reconstruction, choices, courage. Weber did not say that everyone should abandon the system, but he warned, those who do not reflect on it are already dominated. Those who never question are already programmed, and those who never stop are already absorbed. Stopping, in this context, is an act of resistance, not against technology, not against progress, but against the dissolution of the soul amidst the machinery. You can keep running, you can keep delivering, you can go with the flow until the last day. But deep down, the question remains. Who would you be if the machine shut down for a moment, and only you were left? You may be exhausted, sick, grieving, confused. But the clock doesn't stop. The system doesn't pause. The gears don't slow down, because the modern machine just doesn't care about you. Max Weber understood early on that the rationalization of the world would create autonomous structures, systems that function on their own, without regard to who is inside them. The company continues even when the employee collapses. The government continues even when the citizen screams. The school teaches even when the students are emotionally absent. Everything moves, everything turns, everything repeats itself. You can give it your all for years. You can sacrifice weekends, health, family. You can wear the shirt. You can believe in the purpose. But when it breaks, when it finally breaks, it will be replaced with a standard phrase, with a dry email, with a thank you for your service. Weber called this systemic depersonalization. There is no malice in this. There is no direct cruelty. It is simply the natural functioning of the machine. It must continue. And the human being, in this logic, is a resource, not an end. That's why you feel like you're always on the edge of oblivion. That you need to prove, show, conquer, appear. Because the moment you fail, you're erased. The system doesn't store effective memory. It stores results. And this produces a culture of constant anxiety, fear of making mistakes, fear of falling behind, fear of becoming irrelevant. Have you noticed how everything is measured today? Likes, goals, numbers, followers, performance, deliveries, speed. There is no longer room for being, only for doing, and doing is never enough. The machine doesn't see your story. It sees your performance. It doesn't consider your pain. It considers your delivery. It doesn't recognize your effort. It only analyzes the final report. And when you stop and look around, you realize something frightening. No one is really in control. Not the bosses, not the managers, not the presidents. Everyone is just fulfilling their duties, following orders, meeting demands, answering to someone above them. It is the machine commanding without a commander. And it eats away at you from the inside. You start to ask yourself, what am I doing here? But you soon shut up, because the system has no time for questions. It only accepts action. Weber warned, this is the risk of modernity, creating structures so efficient that they forget the essential, and the essential is you, not as a function, but as a person. If one day you leave, nothing will stop. If one day you break, no one will really notice. And that's not cruelty. It's just the impersonal logic of modern functioning. But knowing this could be the first step to freeing yourself. Because if the machine doesn't care about you, maybe it's time you stop defining yourself by it. After all this, the inevitable question arises. What to do if the machine won't stop? If the system won't wait for you? If everything has already been set up to work with or without you? How do you proceed? What options are left? The first response many have is, break everything. Break with everything. Quit your job. Abandon the city. Leave the system. Disconnect. Disappear. But Weber was a realist. He knew that the machine is too big to be destroyed with an impulsive gesture. The question, therefore, is not to destroy. It is to reprogram. From within. You may not be able to change the entire world, but you can change how you view it. And that change, however subtle, can be revolutionary. The first reprogramming is to stop defining yourself by what you produce. You are not your function. You are not your position. You are not your productivity. You are someone who feels, thinks, creates, makes mistakes, loves, rests. And none of this goes into the reports. The second is to re-enchant life, recover the rituals, the pauses, the true encounters, the conversations without purpose, the unhurried glances, the walks without destination. Because all of this rescues what the machine tries to erase, the human. Weber believed that the disenchantment of the world did not have to be definitive. That technical reason did not have to stifle emotional, spiritual, symbolic reason. That there was still room to construct meaning, even within rationality. This takes courage. Courage to swim against the current of haste. Courage to say no to certain demands. Courage to maintain silence amidst the noise. Courage to slow down even when everything around you screams, hurry up. And more than courage, it requires awareness, because only those who see the cage can find the key. You can stay within the system, but with a different outlook. You can work, but without giving yourself completely. You can fulfill your obligations, but without forgetting your why. You can function, without forgetting to live. It's a delicate dance, a tense balance, but possible. And maybe that's the real revolution. Not getting out of the machine, but remembering that you are more than just a part of it. You can still create breathing spaces. You can still cultivate real relationships. You can still turn small actions into acts of reinvention. You can still, above all, choose. And if many do this, if thousands reprogram their way of existing, the machine will no longer be the same. Because in the end, it cannot sustain itself without our participation. You don't have to destroy the world, just refuse to be shaped by it. If this video sparked something in you, stop for a second and react. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Here, we don't run with the machine, we pause, to remember that we are still human. Because as long as the machine keeps turning, we choose to feel, think, and breathe.